Hello, and welcome to the Blackbridge Mindset Podcast, where culture, entrepreneurship, and business intersect to fuel inspiration. This podcast celebrates the power of diverse voices shaping the future of business. So whether you're building a business, breaking barriers, or just looking for some serious inspiration, you're in the right place. The Blackbridge Mindset Podcast is hosted by your three favorite best friends, Mike, Ken, and CJ. So now sit back, relax, and absorb the gems being dropped on you by today's special guest.
All right. Well, hello. I guess I don't even know what episode we're on because we're balling and making so many episodes that we can't even keep track anymore. What is this, like 7, 8, 9? Who knows? But we're killing it.
You're showing your age,
Yeah.
talking about we're balling.
Right. Early 2000
You're
people.
right. You're right. We're killing it.
Get with it. We lit.
We lit.
You may
All
have
right.
to edit.
You're right.
Wow.
You're right. But so some good news to start out the show, as I shared with you guys. We are getting a lot of traction lately. The last week or two, I noticed the numbers jump quite a bit. And our first guest that we had, Ranita, she had over 1,000 watches on YouTube. So pretty excited about that. The second
Nice.
one, David, he's over 800. And our third one was Symphony Love. She's tracking over 600 views, and it's only been out for a week. So people know who we are. They see our beautiful brown faces, and yeah, I'm pretty excited. So once again, my gratitude and thanks to you two for jumping on this train with me and making this happen.
Yeah.
All
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for
You know what?
pushing
I'd be curious to know
over
what our
comfort
numbers look
zone.
like on the podcast apps.
Yeah, so I know the numbers. So we have 50, they call them downloads. So 50 people have listened on the apps. So between Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout,
Mm.
excuse me. And there's a couple other random ones that I've never heard of that people are listening to it on as well. But that just tells me that people want to see our faces and not just hear our voices.
Works for me.
Yeah, so it's going good.
It just means I
So
have
I'll
to
shut up
shave and
now.
brush my teeth more often.
Please do. Please do. But yeah, so I'll shut up for now. How are you two doing? What's going on?
Pretty
Good.
good here. A little worn out tonight,
Right.
but doesn't matter. I'm here,
Yeah.
ready to rock and roll. I know I
There you
wish I
are.
could go outside without a full-on winter coat in the middle of April.
It was 85 degrees here yesterday.
I'm about to say you
Yeah,
sound
rub
so
it in.
sorry.
Right.
Right. I mean,
I see
what?
CJ's not playing with Satan today.
What?
Yeah, I couldn't find any. Like I said, I couldn't find any of my fire protection gear, so this was the next best thing.
For those who are listening on
know?
the podcast, he has a hat on that says "Not today, Satan."
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
hell is hot.
correct. So keep all of that away.
And oh wait, you can't see it. I told Ken before the show, and it looks like I'm going to be stripping, but I'm not stripping. But I wore
Please
for
don't.
fire protection. I have a tank top that's full of fire, just for the show today. It's a little
No
thing.
comment.
I already hear
And
it.
I-
Keep it to yourself.
And I noticed
Keep
it's a
it.
tank top. Is that wishful thinking?
Because it's the only thing I had with flames on it. So I wore it, and then I just put the Ohio State jersey on top of it because I believe he's in Columbus as well. So I'm trying, CJ.
Okay.
I'm trying.
All right.
Let me do my thing.
Listen, I'm reaching for the stars too with this hat, so I'm not complaining at all.
But your hat has so many meanings that we could have a
Right.
whole 2-hour show.
Correct.
I'm okay with it.
Nice. Well, I guess we could stop babbling and we could get on to our guest today. And I think CJ is going to introduce Mr. John Larkin. I don't know why I got to say his name like that.
He's worthy. So today we're talking to a CEO and partner who didn't just build a business, he built a fire protection empire from the ground up, one fire device at a time. ESC is a certified minority-owned small business headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. ESC specializes in the design, installation, and services of fire alarm, fire suppression, and security systems for commercial businesses throughout Ohio and Kentucky. The company also provides turnkey installations and engineering support services. As senior partner of Electronic Systems Consulting, or ESC, John Larkin oversees the day-to-day management of both sales and client relations with a unique focus on local, state, government, and federal projects nationwide. John possesses nearly 3 decades of industry knowledge as well as stellar reputation in the areas of fire and security throughout Ohio and surrounding states. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen,
John Larkin.
Wow. What an
you
intro,
so
guys.
corny.
I love it.
I am corny and I'm okay with it.
I said we.
Oh,
Thank you for
okay.
the introduction.
Yes.
Yeah, how you doing
Welcome
this
to the
evening?
show. Good, man. Wrapping up a long day. Let's hang out with you fellas for an hour or so.
I hope you got some energy left in you.
I do. It's not 9 o'clock yet. It's not my bedtime, so I'm still going. Got a few hours left.
So
Nice.
I've given a brief introduction about your company, Electronic Security Consultants, or ESC. Can you give our audience a little bit of history of, how you got into the industry and, what part of your entrepreneurial brain had you decide to open up your company?
Wow. We have to go back to the Stone Age, Chris. Been that long. To start with, my career really got started in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 2 tours, just over 8 years, almost 9 years. And lucky for me, my choice occupation in the military was a firefighter. So I've had this in my blood since I was 18 years old. I'm not going to tell you how old I am right now, but it's been a few decades. I've been in fire protection my whole adult life. So that's where the start came from, was in the military. While in the military, I was able to get some free education. So I was studying under City College of Chicago. Actually, I was still overseas, but I studied under City College of Chicago for fire engineering and technology. Was able to get that, transfer that to the civilian life. And I think my first company was a company called Silco Fire Protection way back in the early 90s. So I'm not trying to think. 91, actually, I'll be honest. And I started out just as a designer. Chris, I didn't ever think I ever told you that story. Way back when, CO2 systems, man, that's before even AutoCAD was out. We were doing with the rulers and paper and everything like that. So that's kind of where I got my start, with a small fire protection company. I actually started in Dayton, Ohio, because I got out of the right path. And was kind of stuck in the office watching, drawing up CO2 systems and doing the engineering work. I was noticing all these guys who were walking around and they were in and out of the office. I'm like, who are these guys? Those are the sales guys. Why aren't they never here? Well, because their job is to be out and hanging out and meeting customers and bringing in business. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. So I kind of started transferring my skill set to sales and sales management. And kind of fast forward a few years, I worked for some of the bigger companies in the world. Siemens, at the time, we were Service Powertronics. We were part of Siemens. Eventually, I went to a smaller company. Then I ended up Simplex, where I'm actually Chris. I don't know, I was there for 8 years, 9 years. I'm not sure how long you were there, but it was a good run. So I was able to 5 or 6. Yeah. So, you gather all those skills throughout the years from engineering to sales management to branch manager to regional managers. I had all that experience under my belt. And the thing that I had burning inside me that whole time, guys, was I treated my company, or company that I worked for, like my supervisors were my board of directors. So I always treated the company like I owned it, and I reported to the board of directors. So I always had that entrepreneurial mindset. Whatever I did, that's how I focused on business. And it got to the point where I was ready to just make that jump. And I think I made the jump in 2011. Yeah, started my company in 2011, and I haven't looked back since. So there's been some rough roads. The roller coaster has not been smooth, been up and down since 2011, but I'm still here in 2025 with a company under my belt. 14 employees on the ESC side. And like Chris has mentioned, we just branched out into a engineering support division, or a separate company, not a division. It's a separate company altogether. It actually supports ESC, but it's still in the same industry. So to kind of answer your question, I've always had that burning desire to run something, to be my own boss, to take something from scratch. When I started right out of my house with nothing, no money, just opportunity, and grew it from there. So, there's a passion there. You got to have that passion to get up every day, to get kicked in the teeth and go to bed and wake up the next day and do it all over again. So I've always told people I've been very fortunate that I've been in a career field that's something that I love. I think it would have been harder for me to try to build a company off of something that I was wanted to try. I've been, like I said, been in this career my whole life, so it was never a job for me, passion. So I was able to transfer that passion into building a couple of companies.
Very nice. I know you just touched on it a little bit, but in the beginning, you've got your experience, you have your confidence in the field, you're ready to cut your teeth at owning a piece of the pie. How did you look at things from a financial standpoint? I know you said that you didn't really have much money, but how did you get the company off the ground? Did you, finance it out of your pocket? Did you get a loan? Did you have investors? Like what route did you take?
Finance it out of my pocket. 401k, gone.
Mm.
I financed it myself. And there was two ways to look at it. I think, and this is something we'll talk about probably at, what are the pitfalls of running a company, but didn't truly have the financial wherewithal to understand how to go to banks and approach banks for credit lines. Personal credit wasn't that great because I was a knucklehead growing up. So, and those are red flags that you don't know till you know, right? You can't walk into a bank and say, "Hey, here I am, and give me $500,000," and they start pulling your credit rating. Like, yeah, come back and see me 2 or 3 years from now, and it's just a little better, So I was forced to finance in my own. I would love to have been able to walk into a bank and $1 million credit line and would just hire people right off the bat and support that. But it was from the ground up, man. It was a job at a time, building up the clientele, getting that money coming in, trying to talk vendors into giving us credit lines for 30 days or 45 days to front us the equipment. So it was a struggle. I will shout out to an old Air Force buddy who she's actually the godfather of my kids. When I really needed something, I was down and I didn't have the money, called on him and he wrote me a check. So without that support, without the support of my wife, who kept the lights on when I wasn't cutting myself paychecks and trying to pay the bills and grow a company, she was there making sure everything was going strong. So those are the two people that behind me that kind of kept me moving forward. It was a struggle. I mean, I'll be honest with you, today it's still a struggle trying to make payroll. I always tell people, never, when I hear somebody say, "Oh, how much you make a year? What's your revenue?" And I'm like, we do 10 million or 2 million. First thing I say is, how much does it cost to make? I could care less how much money you really actually, I don't care what your
Mm.
P&L says. You're making 2 million. Did it cost you 1.5 to make that 2 million? Or did it cost you 2.5 to make that 2 million? It's all about the net
Right.
profit, right? So those struggles will always be there with wherever you're at in any stage of your company, is trying to make sure that the revenue's coming in, there's some profit part of that revenue, and you're making money. That's why I wish somebody told me that years ago. Somebody have to learn the hard way.
Right. That's awesome. There's 2 things that you mentioned at the beginning of your journey. One is that you started a business that you had passion for, and then the other thing that you mentioned is that, there was an opportunity for you to start this business. So speaking to someone who's on the other side of this screen listening or watching, um, when you say start a business that you have a passion for, how did you know you had a passion for this specific niche? And then also, how did you know there was an opportunity for you to build a business and continue in this niche of fire protection?
That's a great question. Again, go back to, my background. I've been in fire protection my whole life. So that was the catalyst that got things started. Like I said, I don't think I can, start a company that was selling other parts or a designer or, whatever it is, even in construction, because I didn't have that skill set. I mean, I had that burning desire to run something and be my own boss and build something from nothing. But I started out with what I was good at, to be honest with you. It was my passion, being fire protection. Like I said, I was a firefighter, I was a fire inspector, I was an assistant fire chief. got into design, engineering, and lo and behold, you get out into the civilian world and it opens up a little bit more. Now you can see sales guys and companies. I mean, when I was in the Air Force, funny thing is, I never even knew what a fire protection company was because I was a firefighter. That's all I
Mm,
cared about. You get out
mhm,
to the real world, so to speak. I'm like, wow, you can actually do this for a living and you don't have to be a firefighter. You can be, a fire engineer, or you can be in sales and you can be in construction. So all those opportunities started opening up for me to say, man, well, I can actually take this and make something out of it. So that was the start. This is the passion I had in myself to the opportunity side of it. I've been in the industry long enough that I had a lot of contacts in our
mhm,
marketplace because I was a sales rep and a sales manager and a branch manager. So I built a reputation just in Columbus that there was a lot of people who knew who I was. A lot of general contractors, a lot of electrical contractors, a lot of business owners that were in the industry, and they gave me the motivation. Said, "Hey, if you go out on your own, we're going to work with you. We're going to give you work." So I had that opportunity to, not just jump out there and swim without finding something to do. I jumped out there with opportunity that was there waiting for me. I just had to execute and get the job done and keep growing from there. The other part of that, opportunity when the company started growing was obtaining the certifications for the company, the minority certifications, MBE, Edge. There's a lot of initials behind our company name. So that was a game changer for us too. A few years back when I think biggest biggest break came for me when we already had our certification. It really was just at the time, I didn't think it was worth the paper it was written on because nobody was really paying attention to it. It was there, but it wasn't being pushed and forced or acted on at all. And I'll be honest with you, I think it was Governor Kasich at the time and a Republican governor at that made it kind of mandatory for MBE and Edge contracting companies or MBE and Edge certified companies to get a piece of the pie and not just, a knock on the door and let you bid where he was forcing that down, that they were making sure that MBE and Edge companies were getting opportunities. Now, once you got that opportunity, you had to do your job, and we had to do it better than anybody else, right? We First we're MBA, second we're being forced on these people who had already had the relationship with somebody else, and they're waiting for you to trip. They're waiting for you to be late, not have the equipment on time, bad attitudes. We had to our MBA contractors had 10 times better than an average non-MBE contractor just to be equal, right? So that again was some of the opportunities we used to our advantage. And once we got into these jobs and these customers and they could see how well we did our job, we built those relationships and it went on from there. So even if the MBE program went away, just kind of teetering out these days anyway, but we still have that reputation of being a company that can actually do the job. So those are the kind of the breaks we had along the way.
So when you first got started, what was your original vision for the company? And then has that vision changed since then, or are you still working on that original vision and there's other, realities that have come to fruition since you started?
Another great question. How much
mhm,
time do I got? Because I can preach about this for a while. The right answer is no. The vision that I had for the company in 2011 to where we are in 2025 is nowhere near what I thought it was. It's 10 times more. The reason we've kind of shortened the company name, true company name is Electronic Systems Consultant because of my background. I'm a low voltage guy, fire alarm and alarm systems and camera systems. So when I started the company, my focus was fire alarm or low voltage electronic systems. Fast forward now, we do more work on the sprinkler side of the house than we do on the fire alarm side. So
mm,
that's why we're kind of shortening the name. I'm actually going to go through a name change because I'll go to a job site and it goes, well, who's the sprinkler contractor? And I go electronic system. It goes, you guys do sprinkler? You're an electronic company. And I got tired of hearing it. So I'm like, I'm just sick of it. We're just going to change it to ESC. But no, when I started the company, it was really, and I don't want to get too technical and throw out jargon names and stuff, but a lot of stuff that we did what we call in industry is when we're bidding to the bid market, we call it parts and smarts. We're selling parts to an electrical contractor, and then once they do their job and they install it, then we go out and do the programming. We walk out the door, right? That was basically how the company got started. And as we kind of, over time, we started getting into not just the bid market and those small projects. Now we're starting to bid service contracts to customers. So once the system's in place, we'll do a service contract to maintain that customer, because by code, we're fortunate in our industry that what we do for a living is driven by code. You have to have both 9 times out of 10, you've got to have some type of protection in your building. 10 out of 10, that system has to be maintained and serviced by an outside vendor. So that kind of, we went from parts and smarts and we started moving into the service side of the house. It's really at that time where we're still doing fire alarm, right? A little bit of camera work, a little bit of low voltage. And then once we got into these customers and we were doing their fire alarm inspection, they said, hey, what else can you do? Oh, we can do it all. Not knowing that, I really couldn't, but you got to say that. And you walk up the door, oh shit, now I got to get a sprinkler guy. I promised to do this, and got to get a backflow guy. We don't do that either. And we just, you fake it till you make it. And I just used subcontractors and told them that, hey, put on my shirt, go in there and do that inspection and give me my shirt back. And we
Wait, are you sure you should be sharing this?
Oh, trust me now. That's why you I'll tell you anything. But then we slowly started bringing those people on board, and we had that work now. Now we're doing not only fire alarm, now we're doing suppression systems, extinguishers. We're doing everything that comes underneath the umbrella for a systems integrator, which is a company that can do it all. Now we're moving in from just not doing the inspections, but with sprinkler systems. Now we're doing repair work. So now we're repairing them. And now, we got guys good enough to do the inspection, guys good enough to do the repair. Do we have guys good enough that can actually install it? Let's try that. Right. So now we're installing sprinkler systems along with our fire alarm systems and along with our alarm systems, our camera systems. And it just started to grow. So, I look back on that now and Electronic Systems was a fire protection company. Now ESC is a full systems integrator. So we do it all, and we do it all in house. We don't have to sub out any of our install work. Our guys can bin conduit, and they can put in fire pumps and everything else. So we grew that over time. So the vision, I was short-sighted. I didn't have that vision, because I was so focused on what I was good at, or what I thought I was good at, was fire alarm and fire protection, that I wanted to build a fire alarm company under the guise of fire protection. It started to branch out and grow. And, now, like I said, 70% of our revenue is on the water side and not on the electronic side. Funny.
What's that term you like to use, Lovett?
Imperfect action.
Mm-hmm. That's
Making
exactly
imperfect
what
action.
that sounds like.
I think that's how it started, was with imperfect action, but it sounds like throughout the course, you made a lot of pivots as well. You're like, oh, this is what we're going to do, but oh, wait, let's pivot over to this and try this as well, and add on to what we're able to offer. So I think that's great, and people need to hear that, because a lot of times you do go in with blinders on, and this is what I want to do, but then you get down the road and there's so many more opportunities that come knocking. You have to be ready to. You have to be ready.
Yeah.
Nice.
You
Okay.
had mentioned earlier about some challenges, right? So can you talk to us about some of the challenges that you've had over the time that you've been running your business? And then also kind of tell our viewers and listeners, like, what your mindset was to get over those challenges and to kind of move on to the next step.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons I wanted to be on this podcast, just to share those experiences, because, if I look back and say, man, I wish somebody would help with it, impart some of this wisdom on me that I want to impart on others that are starting businesses. I would say the first thing that I look at now when I talk to young people that are wanting to start companies, I ask them, the first thing I want to do is, what's your vision? Because there's two ways to look at an entrepreneur. There's an entrepreneur that can be a standalone entrepreneur, and they want to grow their company, and it's just themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And they can go out and just build a company, and it's almost like a job, but it's their company. And you've got another entrepreneur that wants to build a company, that wants to scale it and wants to have employees and wants to branch out in different offices. And, you go from Columbus to working in Louisville and working in Michigan, and that's that vision, right? So there's two ways to approach being an entrepreneur. So I always ask the person, what do you want to do? Do you want to scale it, or do you want just to be, you know, just run a company yourself, and that's your job and that's your passion and you're great at that? Once you ask that question, then you can get that focus. Now, say the first thing after that, the next question after that is to surround yourself with people who know more than you. It's the most important point. If nothing else comes across in this podcast from me, is that point I want to get across. Surround yourself with people who know more than you. And in my example of that is, and we talked about that, is my passion. Yeah, I've got a passion for fire protection. I really love what I do. But fire protection, when you go into a business, is a lot more than just fire protection. It's understanding how to read a P&L and how to read a balance sheet and how to do cash flow projections. And if that's something that you're not used to, or you have no clue on how to do, you should find somebody as quickly as possible to be a mentor or to be a guide to help you with the things that you do not know best how to do. Because again, it's your passion. I get up every day. I've been, there's days when I didn't want to get up, but I love what I do, and I'll get up and face the day, right? Because it's my passion, what my job is. But at the same time, I would turn a blind eye, or kind of hide behind, man, what's this? Am I actually making money? Who can help me see if this P&L makes sense? And I've had really good mentors along the way that I've asked to come in and help me look at the books, and guys that can take a P&L, goes, there's something wrong right here. I'm like, right where? There's something wrong with these numbers, and let's start digging into it, where I could never figure that out. So that's the most important piece, I think, is to surround yourself with people who understand business, while you understand the passion that you have for your business to grow that. But you need to make sure you got somebody who knows financial strength. You need to, if you're not in marketing, you know to understand, how to market your company. Grab somebody who knows how to do marketing, how to do sales, whatever the case. If you're good at sales, which, I'm a sales guy, Chris knows that I'm a sales guy by heart. But my fight, and it's funny because I actually ran companies before as a branch manager, and I was responsible for the P&L, but I was responsible for the local P&L, right? I just had to make sure that I reached whatever my goal was for that month. If we had to do $500,000 in revenue, great. That was my number. I didn't have to worry about cost of, or the employee cost, insurance, the cost of material, all that stuff that, you didn't really know. And I didn't know till I didn't know when I got out on my own, how all that was important. I ran a company before. I know how to run. I know how to read a P&L. No, you don't. You think you do. You might understand the top line. You might understand the bottom line. There's a whole bunch of other lines in there that runs. And if you're not focusing on those lines, you're going to fail, right? You're going to lose money every month. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to be in business long. So yeah, I guess the moral of it is to surround yourself with people that's going to help you understand how to run a company. That's probably the key.
Yeah, that's your team, right? That's, we've talked about this in other podcasts, is building a team of people to help support you and run the company. You don't need to know and understand how to do everything in order to make the company successful. So there have been people who've come on and said, yeah, I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, this is my vision, but I have these people in place who help me carry out this vision because their passion is, like you said, accounting, or their passion is marketing. I know enough, but I'm not as good as they are. And I
Right.
wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my team.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing to look at on that, Mike, is that when you're starting out, those type of people you can't afford to put on your payroll. You don't have a right. So you've got to lean on people that are wanting to help you understand how to run the business. I can look at it. I've had this company since 2011, and I can be honest with you. I didn't get my team in place so I could start scaling back myself till last year. I went all these years. I didn't have an operations manager. I didn't have a project manager. I didn't have a true, really good office manager or installation manager. I have all those positions. right? So I can take all those hats off my head. But I went from 2011 to 2024. I didn't have all those positions, right? I had sales reps or I had technicians and I had people in the field that could do their job and maybe an office manager, but I was still the CFO, the CEO, HR. I was doing all that myself. And you can't, when you start a company, you can't, unless you are just truly funded and you've got money coming out of, you know what, you can't put all those
Mhm.
people in place right off the bat, right? So you've got to find mentors. You've got to find people that were able to, look at your P&L over coffee or breakfast one morning, right? You know,
Right.
my first office I had, so I started this company out of my house and I got my first office right around 2014. I got very fortunate that my landlord's brother was another entrepreneur he had made so much money. He was retired, so he really wasn't even working. He was kind of helping his brother. And he introduced me to him. And this guy came in out of the goodness of his heart and helped me with my QuickBooks and helped me understand how to read red flags in a balance sheet. I'm like, what's a balance sheet? I don't even know what a balance sheet is. I know my P&L. And he goes, no, you got to understand the cash flow report, P&L, and your balance sheet. It all works together to build a company. And he set up everything for me. And I ran the books that way. I've had entrepreneurs and business owners that I probably met with maybe once or twice a year. And, I was able to say, hey, here's a problem I'm having. Oh, let me make a call. I'm going to set you up with this book. You need a bookkeeper. And I'll set you up with a bookkeeper and they'll give you a discount and get started so you can get your books ready to write. You don't have to worry about it. So I guess the point is, when you're starting out, you're not going to be able to afford those people for all those positions that you want. If you look at your scale and go, oh, from 5 years from now, I'm going to look at my org chart and I'm at top and I've got a COO and I've got a CFO and I've got installation and however your org chart is set up, all those pieces underneath you are not going to be there year 1, year 2, year 3. It's just, if you're
Mhm.
starting out. So where is that help going to come from? You got to have mentors and you got to reach out and find people that are ready, willing to help you. And, I'm fortunate in this community. I've got a lot of people that held my hand, so to speak, and now it's my turn to pay it forward. So I've been able to talk to young entrepreneurs coming in. I ran a few out because like the way reality sits when I'm like, you can't get paid right off the bat, but here's how you run a business. Here's how, I'll set up your books for you, but you got to understand how to bid jobs and how to, float money because you're going to, in this industry, you're not going to get paid for 30, 45, sometimes 60 days. How's that going to work? Right. So, but yeah, so I'm at that stage now where I'm looking forward to doing that and paying it forward and helping people understand. Yeah, you're great at what you do. That's your passion. It's fine. I love it. But your passion's not going to help you grow your business. You got to have people understand how to run a business. And if you can't do it on your own, help find, that was a long way of answering your question, man. But yeah,
You're
That's
good.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's perfect.
So I'm curious. If I remember correctly, up until now, I think you may be the only guest we've had that runs a large company. So it's getting me to thinking, since you basically started from the ground up, how did you go about, I guess, based on your personality, how did you go about determining the type of culture that you wanted to have in your company? How you want to treat your employees, how you want them to feel, coming to the office, knowing that they work for you, what type of impression you want to give them?
man, that's a great question. I just kind of preached that the other day to my team, and I've been around for so long, and I can truly, honestly sit here and look you in the eye, Chris, and tell you, I can count my heroes when it comes. When I say heroes, people that I know, not people that I aspire to be that's on TV or I read about. People that have touched me, has been a part of my life that has guided the way I shape the way I run a company. I can count those heroes on one hand. There's been my fire chief when I was in the military. It's been an owner of a company that I worked for in Detroit that started his own company from scratch. And just, he was a great man and he taught me a lot. And I've had a couple sales managers that when I worked for Siemens that were at the time, I thought it was tough. I thought they hated my gut, but it was tough love. And I can look back now because, man, these guys were kicking my butt, but they were doing it for a reason, right? So I've had people that have guided me along the way without telling me they're guiding me along the way, right? So I can look back now and look at the people that shaped my life in a positive way, 4 or 5, but truly people that touched my life as my career had grown. And, I can also look back in that time frame and look at people that I work with, because if I ever run a company, I don't want to be like him, or I don't want to be like her, because the attitude and the aura was all off, and it was just poison in the office. So I've taken that balance myself and go, if I have my own company, I want to run it this way based on the people that I've experienced throughout my career, both good or bad. And I to this day, I still hang on to that. People I won't mention by name, because you might know some of them. They have like, if I run a company, it's not going to be that way. Or if I run a company, I want to run it the way this guy did it, and be compassionate about not just the business, but run it. And it is so cliche. And I hate to say it, but it is cliche. But I truly do run this like it's a family, because most of my employees are a lot younger than me now. Oh, my kids' age, which just kind of freaks me out every so often. But there's a reason that I don't want my company to go past, while I'm still in charge, past more than 20 people. Because I want to keep that same close-knit family group together. I run an open door policy. My door's open all the time. So if somebody has an issue, whether it's work related or not work related, come on in, let's talk about it. I think how that has really transpired is I've been able to get rid of people, fire people, and we're still friends to this day. And it was like, well, you're one of the greatest bosses I've ever had. Yeah, it didn't work out with us professionally. Hey, but you're still a friend. And if I can help you out, I'll help you out. And I still have those connections. I've demoted people, and because they couldn't cut it, but they're still a part of the team, and it lasted. But on the other side, there's some people around here. It's the biggest a-hole in Columbus. It happens. Can't please everybody, but I run that. I run the company that way. I have meetings with my team consistently on a weekly basis, and I call it the 20s. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a 20-minute meeting, but I just call it the 20s. But it's a one-on-one meeting where we come in and talk on a one-on-one basis, and we talk about whatever you want to talk. It doesn't have to be work related. It can be work related. We can get to work. We got an issue. Let me help you get through this, because you're part of the team. And if you're carrying baggage emotionally or whatever it is, I tell my guys all the time, we're not robots. Everybody's like, get up on the right side of the bed every day and come to work and be cheerful. We're not built like that. We're human beings, right? And we carry emotions and everything else. And, we got lives outside of work, and then things to be heavy and weighing on your heart and your mind. And if something I can do to help you along the way, I will. And I do that consistently. So that's the way I approach the business. But I do to this day. I can go back to the 80s and still remember people that have given me a lot of guidance that at the time I'm like, let's talk. And now it just rings true. It just rings true. So that's the way I approach it.
I have a question. So you mentioned that in your company, you've demoted people or you've had to let some people go. Do you think people still had respect for you after the demotion or being let go is because you set clear expectations for the position and you set clear KPIs for that position?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The one story I tell is I had a guy, and I was at Siemens at the time, and I was a branch manager, and one of my best guys in the field, I wanted to promote him to project manager, which means you're coming from outside, tools in your hands, out in the elements. You're going to come inside, you're going to have a desk job, and you're going to kind of run the company with me from the desk. And I brought in my best guy, and like 2 months later, he comes to me and goes, this ain't working. I don't like this. And I'm like, well, why not? And he goes, I got to have tools in my hand. I don't like paperwork. I don't like sitting here, with a tie on. It's just not my thing. So, okay, so I'm going to move you back to the field. And that guy just retired a couple of years ago. We still remained friends. I had guys that, we tried out positions that it just wasn't for them. And we just we kept them on base or kept them in the company because they still were of value to the team, but they weren't valued at the position I thought they were going to be in. Right? There's that saying you can promote yourself above your pay grade, which means you can keep getting these promotions until you get to the point where you're promoted to a level that you really shouldn't be in. And if you can't recognize it, somebody's going to recognize it, and you're going to have that conversation about, okay, we're either going to let you go, or you're going to go back down to where you're at. So that's kind of the way I've approached it. Yeah, I've rarely had company or employees within the company that I just had to forcibly get out the door, unless they were just pure poison. They were poisoning the whole company, and I'd say, yeah, it's time for you to leave. This company's not for you. It's not the culture that we're trying to present. So I just did that recently.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I know some people, once they get ready to start hiring a team, they may be afraid, of letting someone go. But it sounds like if you set the expectations up front, set the KPIs up front, then there's no reason to be afraid because you could clearly say these were the expectations. They're not being met because you're not doing A, B, and C. So this is the reason we either have to let you go or you have to be demoted. So there's no feeling involved. I mean, it sucks, and so does my camera. There's no feelings in there, but but it's clearly laid out as to I'm doing this because we're not hitting XYZ targets.
Yeah,
So I feel like
yeah.
it makes it a little bit easier.
It's clearly, and again, that's a great point. It's clearly laid out now, because the way I run the company now is a lot smarter than the way I ran the company, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Some of those promotions were like, oh, this guy's doing great. I'm just going to come into the office and see if it works. The company, the way I run the company now, just like you said, everything I do is in writing. Everything we do is an SOP to it. I mean, I got a book sitting right there. They've got every SOP for every position in the company, and it's written. We've got standards. And when we promote somebody, we're going to put you on a 30-day trial basis. Here's what we expect of you, because it's in writing, and we'll meet weekly.
Mhm.
And whatever right off the bat, whatever you're weak at on this checklist, let me know. We're going to help you. Whatever you think you're strong at, great. We're going to rock and roll with it and let it go. But that's another point. Everything we do now is it's clearly written. The expectations aren't just coming out of my mouth on a one-on-one, and there's no guidance there. I do everything that's got a standard operating procedure on a clear checklist.
So you had mentioned just a little bit ago about not having more than 20 employees while you were in charge. So talk to us about how, from your perspective, how that helps you to scale the company, right? To not get too big, right? That you need more than 20 people, but, to kind of keep it on track for the vision that you have.
Oh, that's a great question. So I know right now where we're at revenue wise and where I want to be in the next 4 to 5 years. And there's calculations and math that goes with that. As far as if you're a $2 million company, you've got to have at least 7 or 10 guys in the field generating that revenue. If you want to, go to 10 or take a $2 million to a $2 million company to a $10 million company, obviously there's math that goes along with that says you need that many more people. Now, in looking at that, that's not to say that I have to have all those people on my payroll. So if we want to go from a $2 million company to a $10 million company, and I don't want to go past 20 employees, then we need to look at strategic partnerships, subcontractors. Who can we sub out that's going to help us get along that way, that we don't have to bring everybody in as W-2, because, in construction industry, it's up and down. So I didn't want to, scale up and have 30, 40, 50 employees, and all of a sudden you'd hit a downturn, you got to lay people off. So I've knocked on wood that I've never laid off anybody. We've never missed payroll. But I'm able to keep that scale, that if we want to grow and we know we have to grow, and we know we need to have people to grow, well, those people don't necessarily have to be on our payroll. We can do that through partnerships and subcontractors.
I think that's an important point, right? To point out to people who are listening, right? Like what you said about strategic partnerships, right? And figuring out other ways to build a business other than growing by, adding employees.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's an important way to look at things from that perspective.
Yeah.
I have a question. You've kind of touched on it just now and a little previously, I know there's metrics that you follow based on your your P&L statements. From a payroll perspective, though, if I'm a young entrepreneur and I'm thinking about starting this business, and I've, my eyes are green and I see the money side of it, I'm looking to get rich, but I'm not thinking about the fact that, I have these different buckets that, when I get paid, I have to fill these buckets first. How do you go about your payroll, not only making sure that your budget is in line to pay your employees, but how do you pay yourself? How do you go about, giving back to yourself, number one, and number two, since you wear so many hats, where and how do you find time for yourself?
Let me start with the first part. The time for myself, that's a whole different subject. I'm a very oriented person when it comes to running the company. So everything I do is on spreadsheets. The best way to do that when you're figuring out payroll and how you're going to pay yourself is to set your budget. So I know every year going into it, I've got this much cost for insurance. I've got this much cost for, we use a run rate based on last year, how much it's going to cost to fuel our trucks, how much, vehicle maintenance. I throw line items for everything that we have, including payroll, minus myself. I'll do that first. So I'll have that whole spreadsheet for the budget, and I can look at the bottom line. It goes, our cost to run this company to keep the doors open might be $200,000, $200 to $500,000 a year. That's just cost. That's just employees. That's insurance. That's just to run the company, right? So I take that number and go, okay, we need to make this much every month in sales. We need to, I'll just throw a number out there. If you're a $1 million and a half company, our target was to do 180,000 in sales every month. Then I know that it covers all our expenses, and there's money left at the bottom line for myself. So the dirty secret, or not so dirty secret, of being the entrepreneur, being the person in charge. Yeah, there's going to be days you're not paying yourself, or weeks you're not paying yourself, right? Again, I go back to when we first started the conversation that my wife kept the lights on when things weren't good. I would probably 2 or 3 weeks sometimes without paying myself, because your employees come first. And the only thing I was focused on is making payroll. What bill's not going to get paid this week because payroll's got to be made, but I know I'm going to check from ABC contractor next week, and that's going to cover payroll, and it's going to cover some bills, and maybe I can get paid. And that's just a constant. That never goes away. It doesn't matter how much money you're making. I sat in front of one of the biggest they were biggest engineering firms in town with the CFO. And he goes, I still get scared. Our payroll could be, in comparison, their payroll was like $1 million, $1.5 million a week. I'm like, holy crap, I couldn't even figure that. It made no sense to me. Their payroll was that much. He goes, yeah, there's nights I'm sweating, how are we going to make this payroll? Luckily sometimes they'll have a line of credit, but their line of credit might be maxed out. He goes, it doesn't matter if you're a $500,000 company or a $10 million company. That fear never goes away, because you've got to generate it. You got to run the business. Money's coming in and money's coming out, and you've got to control it. So that's the hard part. But I do everything on a budget. I have a sales plan. I know what my costs are every month. I know what our expenses are outside of that. So, and I can look mid month and go, we're not going to make our numbers. We're going to cover payroll. We're going to cover expenses, but we're going to lose money. Right. Or we're going to have a great month. And what doesn't keep me up at night is I know I've got a backlog of work that once we get that backlog rolling, we're going to get caught back up. Right. It's not like we don't have any work at all, but there's still that work's not being pushed. That work's not being generating revenue. I got to make payments this week, next week, the week after. I mean, my employees, they get paid weekly. So that has to come. But I guess the moral of it, Chris, is I run everything off of spreadsheets and budgets. I know exactly where I'm at all time.
And then how do you find time for yourself? Not speaking in a way of payroll, but you wearing so many hats on a daily basis. When and where do you find time to just, woosah and try not to think about the business?
Hardly ever. I try to make, it's funny, man. I tell you, into last year when it took, so all of 24, I built my management team up. So prior, say, when you go back prior to 23, I was working 7 days a week, just keeping everything rolling. Now we were busy, we were doing great, we were making money, but I was wearing all those hats. And I finally got to the point where we were doing well enough that like every quarter I'm going to bring on somebody. Started with an office manager. So I take that hat off. And I promoted a guy from field to installation manager, took that hat off. And then I brought in a guy that's going to be my project manager, was the greatest hire I had to do, because that took a big hat, took several hats off my head. And then right at the end of the year, I brought in the chief operating officer that kind of oversees, and he has my vision of the safety program and all this other stuff that I want to do that I never had time to do. And I look at the end of the year and I had all my managers in here. I'm like, wow, now maybe I can go to start scaling back and work 4 days a week, or maybe 3 days a week, or one day in the office, or one day at home and the rest of it in the office. And it sounded great on paper. I said, well, I got all these people in place now. I'm still doing the selling, but I can do that in the regular time. I'm still working 7 days a week. Still. It's just that much work here. So the trick is I guess the more of that story is I better hire an estimator, because I that's going to free up my time. But I haven't pulled that trigger yet. So I try to, I'm also a musician. I play music. I'm out in bands, and that's some of my freedom. That's my peace time.
What do you play?
I'm a drummer.
Your instrument.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You're a
used to
drummer?
play drums.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a drummer.
Yeah.
Gosh, it is.
Back.
Let me also answer it this way, Chris, because I think now I can at a pinpoint. I do religiously, and I've done it for the last couple of years. I get up at 5 a.m. I just wake up, and first thing I do is grab my dogs and we go for a walk, and I got music on. And I don't look at my phone. I don't, I've got my phone on me, but it's in my pocket. I don't look at any text messages, any emails. If it's vibrate, I don't care. That whole hour that I'm out walking and I've got music on, that's my time, right? I'll come back home, might work out or I might have coffee, and I'll look at my phone and have my day and start setting my day. So that's my peace time. Lately, I've also added that I go to lunch, and I go to lunch by myself. And I've tried to just take everything off my head for 45 minutes to an hour and go eat lunch, read on my phone, read some articles or something, and business related or music related. And that's my time to kind of decompress from the morning and get ready to come back in the afternoon and work. For those 2 periods of my day, that's my me time. That's the important time that I'm not worried about the company. In the morning, when I'm exercising or working out or walking, or in lunchtime, those are my 2 periods of the day that I won't answer the phone. No, leave a voicemail. I'll call you back at 1 o'clock. Right. So that's kind of what the answer you're looking for. Outside of that, man, I have to be honest with you. Most of my time is thinking about the company. What's the next move? What are we going to do? And how we're going to grow, and waking up at 2 a.m. and staring at the ceiling for an hour, which is usually pretty good for me, because that's when something I'm stressed out for the day before, it hits me 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, that's the fix.
Never.
Good. I'm good. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I don't know why that is. It's a blessing, I guess. But yeah, I kind of I'm not going to worry about it, because the answer will come to me 2 or 3 in the morning. So I'll let it flow. And it
Yeah, I
does.
think that's the side of things that, somebody that's maybe looking to start a business doesn't realize, you are responsible for so much. You don't really think about, anything except for the money, the end game, what's going to,
Yeah.
what's going to happen for you. You don't think about the fact that you're constantly thinking about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what you need to achieve in order to get to that final payout. But I think, making time for yourself is very important. And they probably don't even think about the fact that you're not going to have time for yourself once you get going, honestly.
Right. Now it's very rare. You got to pick those opportunities. Like, yeah, my morning time that's my me time. Everything else it's go time. It's just, you got to do it. And if you're an entrepreneur, your brain never cuts off. I don't care if you're on vacation, and I'm going on vacation with my wife in Europe, and I'm staring at sprinkler systems. I'm in the Coliseum in Rome, and I'm looking at fire extinguishers, going, "That's pretty cool." You know, like, what are you doing? You
Listen,
know, look
I
how they
get
ran
that.
that way, or stuff like that. It never cuts off.
I find myself doing that, going out and just
Yeah,
around the city. Oh,
yeah,
I did that system. Oh yeah, I did that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
did that system. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we are coming up on time, and we want to keep our promise of an hour or less. So I think we're going to go ahead and get into our next little thing that we do with all of our guests, and it is a little lightning round. CJ, tell me you got the sound this time.
I'm
I
working
still
on that.
haven't.
That's actually it's on my list. I will have it
Okay,
this
okay.
week.
It's on my list too. So we both failed for this week. But
Started
John,
looking. I just couldn't figure out how to get it to you. So it's in progress.
okay. I mean, you could be the person who pushed the button. We both got the same little system. You could have it. You could push the button. I
It's
I
too much
give that to you. You
responsibility.
can have it. Huh?
It's too much responsibility.
Nah. I I have trust in you. But in any case, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little lightning round, and I think
Okay.
Ken is gonna ask you 5 questions, and they're just short, simple, sweet. Don't think too much about it. And to give you some pressure, I'm gonna put up a little timer, and you're gonna have 1 minute to answer all 5 questions. Does that sound good?
Let's do it.
All right. Let me, Mr. Tech guy over here. There it is. There's a little timer. And then, yeah, I'm gonna hand it over to Ken. Once he finishes
All right.
asking the question, I'll start it.
Okay, awesome. So after hearing what you said about being a musician, I pulled an audible and changed one of the questions. So here we go. Favorite drummer or drum solo?
John Bonham, Moby Dick,
Very good. One food you could eat every day.
sushi.
What's a skill you wish you had?
Ooh, a skill I wish a singer. I can't sing.
Who would play you in a movie about your life?
Denzel.
Favorite book or movie?
Oh, favorite movie, Smokey and the Bandit one.
Nice. And you get a big round of applause for answering all 5 questions with 15
Right.
seconds left. You're the first person.
I have to say, I am very surprised to hear you say Smokey and the Bandit.
Right. I was not expecting that at
Right.
all.
I can turn that movie down and do the whole thing myself. Trust me.
I wouldn't pin that on you. I would never have expected that.
I absolutely love it.
Nice.
And
Well,
something that
go ahead.
we forgot to do was, give our audience your social media and your Facebook, and let them know where they can find you.
We just launched our new webpage, and I think it's esc-oh.com. I don't do a lot of social media. I got to get back on it. That's another weak part for me. So I don't have a Facebook and I got LinkedIn, but I don't do that. I got to get it marketing. But, long story short, I had a guy that was doing all my marketing, and he passed during COVID, and I just kind of just shut it down. I just launched my new website beginning of this year. Call me.
Well, it looks good. Gotcha. One of the things, I don't know if you've watched an episode or not, but one of the things we do at the end uh, is just a little tradition that we started right before the show, and it's called the Wakanda Peace Pause. And it's just us asking you to sit back, do a little one of these things right here. You're gonna smile into the camera and just hold it for a few seconds. Yep. Look, he already ready. And what I'm gonna do
Bro.
is just later, I'm gonna take a screenshot of it, and then we'll just use that on social media and
You know
things
when
like
you're ready.
that. But that's us welcoming you into the Black Bridge Mindset Club.
My
Gotta say
daughter would
that.
love that. She's
Nice.
with
All
me
right.
forever.
So perfect. On the count of 1, 3, and done. I got balloons. I don't know why I got
Where you
balloons.
get balloons from?
Where'd that come
I
from?
I don't know. I don't know. That
You
was the
found a magic
celebration for
button.
him. I guess that's the celebration for him I don't know how they came up, figured that out later. But yeah, thank you so much
Thank
for
you guys.
Absolutely.
Congratulations
John
again.
Larkin.
Congratulations on the podcast. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
I hope
Yeah,
people
no, I
learned a
really
lot today, because I definitely did.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Blackbridge Mindset Podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share, drop a comment, and leave a review. We're building bridges, one story, one mindset, one move at a time. Show our guests some love by checking out their socials too. Until next time, keep pushing, keep growing, and keep walking in your purpose.